Welcome back to the Give and Go. I'm your coach Reynoso here with my boy
Soltero. What's up, y'all?
It's the glorious Ballon d'Or day, a day that I've waited for a long time as we reward the best performances and the best players of the 2023-2024 season over in Paris, hosted by L'Équipe, a reward that is very, very prestigious in the footballing world. Starts off with non-stop drama. I wake up to a notification that Real Madrid will not be in attendance. Why, brother? Because Vini Jr. apparently is reported to not lift the trophy.
Yeah, and once I saw that same report, I was like, oh, okay, so I know who's winning then. Because if it's not Vinicius, then it had to be Rodri. And that's actually exactly what ended up happening. But bro, like, the fuck you that Vinicius and Real Madrid basically did to the entire organization of Ballon d'Or. Yeah, I mean, it's a big statement.
It's a big statement.
It's a big one to just not even go. He was second, right? So I'm sure the voting was really close. I don't know if they disclosed the numbers or not as far as like points
I want to
concerned.
see how that looked. They didn't do it on the show, but I'm sure afterwards they'll disclose it, at least maybe like on the Wikipedia page or something. But you're right. No, you're right. Bellingham was also in the running. He's ended up in third. Carvajal ended up in fourth, I believe. There were so many Real Madrid players present in the finalist section, but once they heard that Vini wasn't going to lift it, I mean, I think from their perspective they felt disrespected, which is what the quote was. I'll read it right here. They said, if the criteria for the award did not declare Vinicius the winner, the same criteria should declare Carvajal the winner. Since that was not the case, it is clear that the Ballon d'Or and UEFA do not respect Real Madrid. Real Madrid will not be where they are not respected.
Damn. And you know what? I agree. I think if it's not going to be Vinicius, which I actually kind of agree that you could argue Vinicius wasn't the best player last season, then it has to be Dani Carvajal. It has to be, right? His performances in the Euros, I thought was better than Rodri's. And then you also have to consider the fact that Carvajal was massive in getting Real Madrid a title and a Champions League last year, right? So I actually kind of agree with Madrid here. Now, the idea to not go, and it's a little petty. It's a little petty, bro.
Yeah, I've always seen Carvajal as the clear fourth in this one, at least in Reynoso Mountain rankings. I've always had him as the fourth best performer this season. I think given what he did at the Euros, everything pushed him up to that level as a fullback. It is incredible what we saw from Carvajal. But I think at the end of the day, the discourse really was between Rodri and Vini Jr. And one thing that I did notice right off the bat was that there wasn't a clear favorite this year. And it's why I really liked keeping track of the race for the Ballon d'Or, because there were moments where Mbappe was leading the race, where Bellingham was the favorite to win it back, like in February before the Champions League knockout stages happened. But then Vini, with what he did in the Champions League, I thought was so big, so impactful that to me ultimately ended up pushing me over the edge when it came to that Rodri-Vini Jr. debate. But now that we see that Rodri ends up lifting the reward, I definitely don't agree with people that say he doesn't deserve it, because he absolutely deserves this reward. And I ultimately saw it as a 50-50 type split between him and Vini Jr. You make your pick. So I definitely think he deserves it. What I do think is a big statement that the Ballon d'Or committee is making by now selecting Rodri the year after Messi wins it is they must have an insane value on international competitions. Because I think that ends up being the tiebreaker between what was this close race between Rodri and Vini Jr. That performance in the Euros, I think, said so much more to the journalists than the performance we saw from Vini in the Copa America, where essentially wasn't able to make an impact. And so that's big. That is big, because at the club level, I think Vini did the most he absolutely could.
I completely agree. I think international tournaments, Euro, Copa America, and World Cup are heavily weighted when it comes to deciding the Ballon d'Or. And I was worried about Vinicius with Brazil in the Copa America because he did not show up. None of Brazil showed up, but Vinicius should have at least tried to go solo with it, and he didn't. He just didn't even perform close to what we've seen at Real Madrid. And you look at the counterparts, Rodri or Dani Carvajal, well, they played the best football on the planet over the summer. Spain, we deem Spain the best team, even over maybe Argentina and Colombia, based off of the performances in the Euros. And who's a part of that? Rodri and Dani Carvajal, right? So I think the fact that Rodri ends up winning it is just an accumulation of these type of performances. Winning the Euros is huge. It's huge. So it makes sense to me that a Spaniard ends up lifting the Ballon d'Or. Who are the best players in the world? Well, it makes sense that Spain are, since, you know, they're probably playing the best football. Rodri, Dani Carvajal, I think makes sense. Jude Bellingham, I'm okay with him finishing in third because he kind of dropped off a bit for Real Madrid going into the end of the season, and then England were so weird over the Euros. So again, I think it all does make sense, but I can entertain any disagreement though, because Vinicius was probably the overall better player over the course of the entire club season.
It's just so close. This one was so close, and I think there's arguments for any side, but I just don't agree with the angle, the perspective I'm seeing that Rodri didn't deserve it, or Rodri fans that are now celebrating this victory saying that Vini never was close to it. Like, let's not lie here, man. Like, both these guys, and even Carvajal and Bellingham, had an incredible season. Rodri ends up being the winner with 0 Madrid presence in the stands. Nobody, man, not even Fiorentino Perez showing up to the event, and thus deeming Rodri the winner, man. Massive victory for Rodri. Real quickly, I want to talk about him and what this means for his legacy. I think recently the discourse around Rodri has dipped a bit because of recency bias. The fact that he got injured this season and we haven't been able to see him play. It's why I think a lot of people were starting to lean towards Vini winning the Ballon d'Or, though it doesn't matter. But with how he's played so far this season, the highlights he's had, he's been really, really good. And I think seeing him perform at those levels, whereas Rodri just isn't performing at all right now, was pushing people more towards that Vini narrative. But let's not forget, man, what Rodri was doing this entire last season. Basically didn't lose. Of course, he lost in that Champions League quarterfinal against Real Madrid. But beyond that, basically didn't lose with the national team or with the club team in Manchester City. Premier League, they won the toughest league in the world once again outright. And he's just a clinical player in that midfield, commanding the midfield, but winning the ball back whenever it's needed, being smart on it as well, providing that composure that's needed for Manchester City, the engine for them in that midfield as he just hands the ball off to Erling Haaland, to Phil Foden, to Bernardo Silva, so many good talents. I think Rodri just had an incredible year, and I'm happy for him now, given that, he at one point was with Atletico Madrid, man, in his career, and now gets to celebrate lifting a Ballon d'Or as a midfielder, a defensive midfielder.
Yeah, and that's why I do think Rodri does deserve it. Because you look at the accumulation of his career, and it's basically nonstop winning. Starting off at Villarreal, showcasing his talents. Atletico get him for 1 year, and in that singular year, Pep saw the ability of Rodri. He goes to Manchester City, and the rest is history. 4 Premier League titles, a UEFA Champions League, and now a Euro to his cabinet. Rodri is the best defensive midfielder, I'd say, over the last 2 to 3 seasons. And so I think that's why it is fair to say that, he's probably the best player in the world as far as the Ballon d'Or is concerned. But I also think that's where the contention happens, because since it is journalists deciding it, I do think they look at past seasons, right? Because you look at Vinicius, he hasn't been as good as Rodri for as long. That's another reason to not pick Vinicius, even though technically you're only supposed to go off the last season. Clearly, these people can be swayed, right? Yeah. So I think I can understand why people would be angry that Rodri's winning. I can understand why people would be angry that, Vinicius had won, looking at Rodri or Dani Carvajal. So I love entertaining all this stuff. It's so fun. But Rodri, I'm very happy that he won, because he does deserve it.
Yeah. Does this fall under robbery? Did Vini Jr get robbed?
I would say, if you just look at the last calendar season, probably, yeah. Because I would say the last calendar season, not career. Because career, I'd actually say Rodri's probably the better player, right? Career. But the last season, I just do think Vinicius was the best player. I really do. I think he guided Madrid to the Champions League final. And of course, he had a lot of help with Carvajal and Bellingham, but he was the star player for the best club in the world. And he had a bad summer, but that's just 1 month. 1 month out of 12. So I just think he probably played the better football more consistently at the highest level than Rodri did last year. Rodri's had the better career. I don't know. This just gets really tight.
Yeah, I think Rodri snuck away with it. I don't think he robbed it.
Rob's a big word.
Rob's
a big word.
Because he had an incredible last year. But let's not forget, who's Man City's best player in the Prem last year? It was Phil Foden. It was Phil Foden who won Premier League Player of the Year. And even at the Euros, man, I mean, I think Yamal, Dani Olmo had more impactful performances for Spain as well. I don't want to take any of it away from Rodri. I do think he deserves it, but I think he was sneaky with it at the end of the day because I agree. I think Vini, had he just had a better national team performance in the Copa America, should have been the favorite to win the award at the end of the day.
Yeah, I completely agree.
We also had Aitana Bonmatí lift the women's Ballon d'Or back-to-back victories. Incredible from her as she won the Champions League and scored a goal in that final with Barcelona, and then went deep with Spain in the Olympics, but ultimately fell short. This is dominance at the women's level now with 2 back-to-back trophies. An incredible victory by her, and now I'm asking the question, can she do 3 back-to-back, man? That'd be crazy.
Yeah, I was thinking about who's going to win on the women's side going into tonight, but every time I thought about it, because I was thinking, okay, maybe a U.S. player wins it due to them having a nice resurgence in the Olympics. But considering Bonmatí, Champions League winner, and yes, she didn't win the Olympics, even during that tournament, I thought Spain had the best players and the USA had just an overall better team. So I do think that if you give the award to the best player, it has to be a Spaniard. And out of the four runnings, 3 of them were Spanish. So I think it makes sense. I think this one, there's no controversy. Aitana Bonmatí is the best women's player in the world.
It's amazing to see, man. Another trophy, and she makes it look so easy, so simple. Really cool to see, man. Really cool to see. But other trophies that we had Lamine Yamal win the Copa Trophy, which is the reward for the best player under 21 years old, I believe.
Yeah.
He wins it as the youngest winner of the reward. Good to see.
I think that one's clear. Just go look at our Euro videos, man. I mean, every time Spain played, we were just praising how good Lamine Yamal is and how good he's been this season. The longer he played last year, it was clear that he's going to be a legendary player. I think it makes sense. He is the best youngster in the world right now.
Yeah, and a lot of these rewards beyond the Ballon d'Or were pretty much predictable. Barcelona winning the best women's club of the year made sense as well with them winning the Champions League. Real Madrid winning best men's club of the year also made sense. Harry Kane and Mbappe sharing the Gerd Müller trophy as top goal scorers of this past season with 52 goals. Emi Martinez wins back-to-back Yashin Trophy victories here as he won it last year because of his World Cup performances, and now he does it again with his performances with Aston Villa and Argentina in the Copa America.
Is Martinez the best goalkeeper in the world?
That's the thing, though, bro. People are criticizing how he has back-to-back trophies, but he never reached the levels of like Alisson. He never reached the levels of Courtois.
No.
But he has more trophies than them in this category.
And I think this kind of really indicates that they take international play very heavily, because obviously he did come up big for Argentina in the Copa America. He was huge in that penalty shootout against Ecuador, and then he was immense throughout the rest of the tournament, just doing Emi Martinez things. I'm not saying he's a bad goalkeeper, but if you say that the award is for the entire year, I'm rating Lunin higher. I really am. He got Madrid to the Champions League. I'm actually going to put Kevin Kelleher higher because I think the way he stepped in for Liverpool last season for such a long period of time and didn't dip in quality at all, I think is more important than what Emi Martinez did over the entire 12 months. So for me, Martinez is not the best goalkeeper of the last year. He's a top goalkeeper, do not get me wrong. I just think the award should have gone to somebody else.
Yeah. But what's the coincidence between those two players' name, Kelleher and the other player? There's no international.
There's nothing.
Achievements.
There's nothing.
That's huge, man. It's huge, bro. It just puts such an emphasis on that. And then lastly, Jenny Hermoso winning the Socrates Trophy. That rounds out all the rewards. Vini Jr. not showing up, losing on the Ballon d'Or, and Rodri lifts it. What do you think is going to happen then in the future? How do you think the response is going to be from Real Madrid after the week they've had against Barcelona and now this? What are we going to see from Real Madrid? Are we going to see an angry Real Madrid? Are we going to see an angry Vini? What are we going to see from the response from Real Madrid as an institution and from the players involved, man?
I was just worried, first of all, because of that 4-0 drubbing over the weekend. I was like, is Vini going to come and accept the award if he wins, knowing that he just got murdered by his rival?
The Barca boys are there and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
It's awkward conversations to be had, man.
Yeah, and so now going forward, I'm just so curious to see how Madrid show up. I'm with you. Like, what is actually going to happen? I think it can go either way, really, because right now I do think there's just not necessarily an ego problem, but there's a superstar problem at Real Madrid. How do you fit in 4 players, Rodrigo, Vinicius, Bellingham, and Mbappe all together on the same pitch. I don't think Ancelotti's figured it out. Now, the fact that there's this kind of disrespect almost to Real Madrid by not giving the best player the award. So it's just like, all right, are they going to take that as fuel, or are they just going to get worse? I don't know, man. It's tough to tell because Madrid have started off so weird.
Yeah, and this is a new generation around Madrid. And I will say this is the first time in, I would say, the past 2-3 years where Madrid is being disrespected like this. In the Ballon d'Or stage and, with their rivals in Barcelona, back in the day when they would get disrespected, you'd have a guy who respond, and Cristiano Ronaldo and Karim Benzema, these guys that would step up. But now you don't have any of these guys. You have top talent. How do you respond to disrespect? I hope that this team, this institution, this club steps up and sees this as a motivator after the rough week they've had to just get it together and put up great performances and show us that fully fulfilled Real Madrid side that we've been wanting. Because if we don't get that, man, then we could see a really interesting turnout for Real Madrid for the rest of the season. A season where they just continue getting more and more disrespect.
You know what's also interesting though is the fact that Messi won last year. Especially seeing Emi Martinez winning, seeing a Man City player winning. I think it's almost as if they tried to combine the last 2 seasons because they couldn't give an award to a player who probably deserved it over Messi last year. And that's why this gets so weird, because I don't think they've ever really taken into consideration just one singular year. This is where the Ballon d'Or gets, very, very weird. Yeah. So what I do think, though, is a positive is since Messi and Ronaldo will no longer win this award, this is that weird transition year, possibly, and maybe over the next couple of years, it will become clear that it's just going to be a 12-month award. And like,
be nice.
It'd be really nice. Like, all right, who was the best player over the last calendar year, over the last season, and they just give the award as it should be. Because I just think Messi and Ronaldo, what they've done might not ever be repeated again. They've dominated the Ballon d'Or for over a decade, and now we're finally entering a new period of Ballon d'Or winners where, as you said at the very beginning, it could be anyone, I think, any year. So I think this is an exciting time. It's a weird year, in my opinion. But we're going to keep going. Congratulations to Rodri, because I do think he deserves it.
No, congratulations to him. Huge for him in Manchester City getting their first Ballon d'Or winner, I believe, with Erling Haaland in a way getting robbed of it last year is what people are saying, because Messi got
that's the thing.
Instead,
that's the thing.
Rodri wins it this year. And I think this next year is going to be a really fun one, man, because Rodri made a comment about how he sees Yamal one day winning one. I think that day could be very, very soon, man, like with how he started off this season. And there's a number of players with how they start off this whole season that I think are worthy of that. I mean, Mo Salah's got 7 and 7 in the Prem. Lewandowski is a contender right now, very early in the year, but that's why you watch Reynoso Mountain, because I'll start unveiling my nominations very, very soon as we track the new 2025 Ballon d'Or race. The 2024 one, though, ends with a lot of drama and with Rodri lifting the trophy amidst what was, at the end of the day, Spanish dominance, women's and men's.